Welcome to the Fantasy Football Forecast on News Channel 8 and PewterReport.com. Dan Lucas and Andrew Scavelli here. Andrew, we are in Week 10 of the NFL season, and once you hit double digits in the NFL season, it's on in fantasy football because leagues have started to kind of separate themselves. If you're at the top, good for you. Now you're starting to look at playoff position if you're not at the top or trying to climb up to the bottom. If you're the rock bottom, you're playing for 2019, perhaps, but thanks for the donation.
Yeah.
First of all, we're going to talk about the importance of Week 10 because you're going to get some players here that are going to help us out in the final push to the playoffs. But first, as always, here in the Tampa Bay Buccaneer land, let's talk about the Bucs and what's coming off of a disappointing loss that had fantasy value on offense up in Carolina, but going into the game against Washington, what do you see?
Well, obviously, stick with the Bucs as always, and as you said, we're really getting down to the wire here. So since it's Hump Day, let's talk about Buccaneers wide receiver Adam Humphries, and certainly he's been a really popular pickup this past week. Over the last 3 weeks, he's actually had a huge amount of targets, I believe 27. And he's actually taken a lot of production away from Chris Godwin. So obviously last Sunday against the Panthers, he caught 8 balls for 82 yards and 2 touchdowns. But I believe that was more of a matchup exploitation. So I'm definitely not expecting those same numbers this week. But against the Washington Redskins, I definitely do expect him to be involved, certainly. We're expecting Josh Norman to shadow Mike Evans. But in my opinion, I believe that'll kind of open up things more for Deshaun Jackson to have a big game against one of his former teams again. So Adam Humphries is definitely a guy that I would hold off on for now unless you're really desperate at that wide receiver spot.
All right. Usually we dive into maybe a division or a position group, guys who aren't known well you could pick up, but there aren't many guys left now. Hey, the secrets are out. However, you do have a few names that can sneak in there, your sneaky picks here for November that could help you maybe get that push, get over the hump to get into your playoffs.
Absolutely. So we'll basically talk about my sneaky plays of the week, and these guys are owned in about 50% of leagues, and I believe that they could step in and help you win this Sunday. So first, starting at quarterback, I like Redskins quarterback Alex Smith. He's going up against your Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense that has allowed the most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks and the most points just in general, obviously. So last week against the Falcons, Smith had 48 pass attempts, and I believe that he'll probably put up similar numbers throwing the ball this week, just because, obviously this game has the makings of a potential shootout, as all Buccaneers games do. So I'm thinking that Smith is probably going to be a lock for 20 points this week.
Good stuff. What else you got there?
So at running back, I like the Browns' Duke Johnson, who is actually my pickup of the week. And really, I believe one of the big difference makers this week, especially at PPR. So last week against the Chiefs, he caught 9 balls for, I believe, 78 yards and 2 touchdowns. Really expecting him, obviously, once they traded Carlos Hyde to kind of be more involved in the offense, but it really didn't happen until Freddie Kitchens took over as offensive coordinator, and now that Johnson's cooking, I believe that's a really good, safe PPR play there.
Oh, good stuff.
And also, because they do play the Falcons this week, and the Falcons are by far the worst team covering running backs out of the backfield. So if you're playing in PPR, definitely take a look at Duke Johnson. And now at wide receiver, let's give some love to a former USF Bull, Marquez Valdez-Scantling. So this guy now in the last 4 weeks has put up at least 100 yards and a touchdown. And now with the Packers losing Geronimo Allison to IR for the year, and with Randall Cobb still being ineffective as ever, I believe that Valdez-Scantling is by far the clear-cut number 2 receiving option on the Packers going forward. So he's definitely a guy to pick up and play this week. And then just sticking with wide receiver, we just learned earlier today that the Saints are going to offer Dez Bryant a contract. So in my opinion, I believe
where does he fit in, though? That's going to be...
Yeah, I believe that he could come in and be like that 3rd receiver option. It's going to take him a little while, but if you do have a deep bench and you just want to take a flyer on him, I believe that come fantasy playoff time, he could pay dividends for you and your team. And now to stick with the Saints at tight end, obviously in that really explosive offense, Ben Watson is kind of disappointed from a production standpoint in terms of consistency, but over the last two out of the 3 weeks, he has scored a touchdown, and he's usually good for about 5 to 6 targets every game. This week, the Saints play the Cincinnati Bengals, and the Bengals give up the 3rd most points to tight ends, so that could be a really good potential.
And as always, give me a sneaky defense, because you've been nailing it here on the defenses most of the season.
so yes, on defense, I'm going to have to go with the Jets this week. Obviously, they face the Buffalo Bills, who give up the most points to opposing fantasy quarterbacks. But if the Jets are already taken in your league, maybe look towards the Bills, who obviously, like the Jets, give up the 6th most points to quarterbacks. And so I believe that this match has the potential to be kind of a turnover fest, similar to what we saw last week with
Sam Darnold's 4 turnovers.
Exactly, with the Jets and the Dolphins. So between either one of these 2 defenses, I think they're in pretty safe position this week.
All right, good stuff. Week 10. Andrew, thank you.
Thank you.